Have you ever had that feeling where you're praying? I mean, really praying, putting your back into it, but it feels like your words are just hitting the ceiling.
And just ricocheting right back down at you.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you've spent hours studying, digging into scripture, reading commentaries.
Trying to get it.
And you close the book and just walk away feeling this weird inner emptiness.
That's a profoundly relatable feeling.
Yeah.
Like you fed your brain a 5-course meal, but your heart is still starving.
Exactly. And that is exactly where we are camping out today. We are doing a deep dive into the teachings of Watchman Nee.
For those who might not know the name, he was a hugely influential Chinese Christian teacher in the early 20th century.
Right. And we're looking at his insights from classics like The Spiritual Man, but really zeroing in on a lecture called Open My Eyes, Lord.
And the mission here is to unpack a very specific, and I'd say pretty provocative idea that Nee held. He argued that the reason for that burnout, that ricochet feeling, is that we're often using the wrong internal organ to try and find God.
The wrong organ, like trying to hear with your elbow.
Basically, yes. He says we're trying to use the soul, our intellect, our emotions, when we were designed to use the spirit.
Okay, let's stop right there, because that sounds like a very subtle, maybe even a theological, hair-splitting distinction at first.
Soul versus spirit.
Yeah. In modern English, we use those words almost interchangeably, right? If I say, that music touched my soul, or it touched my spirit, I mean the exact same thing.
We do. But as you dig into Nee's material, you realize that for him, this distinction is, well, it's the whole ballgame.
So what is the distinction for him?
He bases it largely on Hebrews 4.112, which talks about the word of God piercing to the division of soul and spirit.
The division, so they're not the same.
Not at all. For me, they're two totally different operating systems. The soul is the seat of the mind, the emotion, and the will.
Okay, so the soul is basically me. My personality, my brain, my anxiety, my to-do list.
Correct. It's the self-conscious part of you. But the spirit, he says, is a distinct organ designed specifically to know God. It's God-conscious.
So the problem is we're trained our whole lives to value the intellect, the soul's function.
Precisely. We're trained from kindergarten to analyze, to categorize, so we bring that same toolkit to our faith. We treat God like a concept to be understood.
Instead of a person to be known.
Exactly. It's like trying to hack into a mainframe instead of talking to a friend. And Mia uses the brilliant analogy to explain why this fails.
The man learning to swim.
You got it. I think it perfectly captures the absurdity of it all.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so imagine a man who desperately wants to learn to swim, but he's terrified of the water. So instead of getting in, he buys a textbook.
Okay. A manual on swimming.
He studies diagrams. He sits in his living room and memorizes the breathing techniques, the physics of buoyancy. He knows the exact angle his arm needs to enter the water.
Intellectually, he's a master, a PhD in swimming.
He has all the information. But then finally, he walks out to the pool, stands on the edge, and jumps in. What happens?
He sinks like a rock.
Immediately. He drowns. Why? Because swimming isn't a theory. It's an experience. It's a life.
And Nee says Christianity is exactly the same.
Exactly. You can know the Bible backward and forward, win every theological debate online, and yet spiritually you can sink like a stone.
That is a little terrifying, actually, because I think a lot of us really do rely on our manuals.
We rely on knowing the right answers, but knowing about isn't the same as knowing.
So where does that lead us?
Well, it leads us to a really crucial prayer that Nee focuses on. It's from Paul in Ephesians chapter 1.
Right, he's praying for believers, for people already in the church.
He is. And he prays that God would give them a spirit of wisdom and revelation. He asks for the eyes of your heart to be enlightened.
Which is strange, isn't it? Why would believers need revelation? Don't they already have it?
That's the key. Paul didn't ask for more information or better doctrine. He asked for revelation.
A sudden uncovering, a lifting of a veil.
Yes. Nee says, seeing is everything. Think about it. You can try to change your behavior based on a rule you memorized. I should be patient. That's willpower. It's a struggle.
When you see it.
When you see the reality of God, when the lights actually turn on, transformation just becomes, well, inevitable. It moves from mental assent to spiritual reality.
It's the difference between memorizing a map of Paris and actually standing in front of the Eiffel Tower.
One is abstract, the other changes you.
Exactly. I want to push on this a bit, though. Is Nee anti-intellectual? Is he saying stop studying because we're doing a deep dive right now? We're using our brains.
That's a fair question.
Hmm.
And no, he isn't saying the mind is useless. He's saying it's the wrong starting point for spiritual life.
A great servant, but a terrible master.
You've got it. And to illustrate this, he uses another analogy, the apple.
Oh, right. The lab report versus the snack.
Chuckles. Basically, you can send an apple to a lab, you can analyze its chemical composition, map its cellular structure, you can know everything about the apple.
But does that knowledge nourish you?
You could starve to death holding that lab report.
Right. Study satisfies curiosity. Eating sustains life.
And Nee points to John 6.53, where Jesus says, "Unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man, you have no life in you."
It's about internalization, not just analysis.
Yes. And this brings us to that famous story of Martha and Mary.
Okay, I have to be honest, I've always had a little bit of a beef with this story. I feel like Martha gets a bad rap.
A lot of people do. She's the responsible one.
She's in the kitchen, sweating, making sure everyone gets fed. If everyone acted like Mary, nobody would eat.
It's tough for the doers of the world, isn't it? But look at the source of her action. Martha is service without revelation. She's distracted. She's worried.
She's working hard out of her own energy, her
The
soul.
It's duty. It's anxiety. That's why she gets snappy and comes out and basically yells at Jesus.
While Mary is just sitting at his feet, which to Martha and to me sometimes looks like a laziness.
But Nee argues that God values the amount of life expressed over the amount of work done. Mary chose the better part.
Which was receptivity.
She wasn't trying to perform for him. She was open to receiving from him.
So the critique isn't that she was cooking, it's that she was cooking from her own frazzled, anxious soul power.
Precisely. You can cook dinner in the spirit and you can preach a sermon in the flesh. It's not about the activity. It's about the source.
That's a huge distinction, but it also means this seeing, this revelation, it's not achieved by IQ or effort.
In fact, human talent can be a barrier. Nee says God reveals himself not to the intelligent, but to the humble.
Which brings us to 1 Corinthians 2. These things are revealed by the Spirit, not imagined by the mind.
Exactly. If you're approaching faith like a math problem, you're using the wrong tool. It's like trying to listen to Mozart with your nose. It doesn't matter how hard you sniff.
Chuckles. Okay, so if natural intelligence and hard work can actually be obstacles, let's talk about the process, because this is where the source material gets, well, a little dark.
It does get heavy.
It talks about brokenness, and honestly, this is where I start to get a little nervous.
I understand that.
It sounds like Nee is saying, if you're talented, God has to break your legs so you rely on him. Is that really the message? It seems harsh.
It does sound harsh. It sounds almost abusive if you look at it superficially. But let's look at the context.
Okay.
Watchman Nee wasn't writing this from a comfortable armchair. He spent the last 20 years of his life in a communist prison in China.
Because of his faith.
Yes. He died there in 1972. So when he talks about suffering and brokenness, he isn't speaking theoretically. He lived it.
That's a fair point. He earned the right to speak on this.
He did. And he points to 2 Corinthians 4.7. We have this treasure in jars of clay.
The treasure is the light and life of God. The jar is us.
Right. And Nee argues that for the light to shine out, the jar often needs to be broken. If the jar is too thick, too strong, if we're too self-reliant, the light stays hidden.
So the breaking isn't God being mean, it's God releasing the treasure.
It's about cracking the shell of self-sufficiency. If I believe I can handle everything with my own brain, why would I ever need to rely on the Spirit?
You wouldn't. So God allows difficulties to crack that shell.
He writes, the cross is not only the source of our salvation, but also the means of our revelation.
There's a specific analogy about darkness that I think will really speak to people listening, especially those who feel like God has just ghosted them.
The seed analogy.
Yeah.
It's for the person who says, I'm praying, but I feel nothing. It's just dark. Nee asks us to imagine a farmer who plants a seed.
Okay.
If that farmer goes out every morning and digs it up to check if it's growing, what happens to the seed?
He kills it. It never gets a chance to root.
Because growth requires time in the dark. It happens underground, unseen.
So God withdraws the sense of his presence.
The warm fuzzies, the emotional highs, he withdraws them specifically to teach us to walk by faith, not by feelings.
Because if you only obey when you feel spiritual, you're not obeying God.
You're just following your dopamine.
Rocks. That needs to be on a t-shirt.
It's true, though. Nee defines faith as obeying despite the consequences, continuing to walk when you can't see the path.
So we have the problem. Soul versus spirit. We have the process. Brokenness. Now let's talk about the goal. What does it look like when it works?
This is the concept of union.
And for me, the best part of this whole deep dive was the glove analogy. It finally made the whole Christ in me thing just click.
It's the classic knee illustration, isn't it? So simple, but it carries so much weight.
Paint the picture for us.
Okay, so imagine a glove lying on a table. It has the shape of a hand, but it's totally limp, inert.
It can't do anything on its own.
It can't pick up a book. It can't give money away. No matter how much you yell at it, be a good glove, it can't do it.
And that's us trying to live the Christian life on our own moral effort. I will be a good person today.
Exactly, and this is crucial. Nee says the Christian life isn't just difficult, it is impossible.
You can't just grit your teeth and love your enemies.
You can't. It just leads to exhaustion and guilt. But then, the hand enters the glove.
The moment of union.
And when a living hand fills that glove, suddenly the glove can do everything. It can work. It can serve. But, and this is the magic of it, it's not the glove doing it.
It's the hand doing it through the glove. The glove is just the vessel.
That's Galatians 2:20. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. We are the glove. Christ is the hand. The goal is an imitation. It's participation.
Okay, so if I'm listening and I'm tired of being the floppy, empty glove, how do I know the difference? I mean, sometimes I think I'm being spiritual, but I might just be being emotional.
That's the million-dollar question. Nee gives us three main indicators to check ourselves. First is pride versus humility.
Mental knowledge puffs up.
Exactly. If your learning makes you feel superior, if you're destroying opponents in the YouTube comments, that's the soul. Revelation always humbles you.
That's a good check. What's the second?
The second is abstract versus concrete. Mental knowledge stays a theory. You can talk beautifully about patience, but then you lose your temper in traffic.
Revelation actually changes your behavior.
It actually does the thing. And the third is speed. Mental knowledge is fast. You can binge this deep dive in 20 minutes. But revelation takes time. It often involves that slow, dark growth.
All right, let's get practical. Let's land the plane. The source outlines a sort of pathway for the learner.
Right. Nee suggests 5 steps to nurture this receptivity. Step 1 is to recognize your poverty of spirit.
Back to the Beatitudes, admitting you can do nothing and know nothing without God.
You have to resign as the CEO of your own life. Stop trusting your own brilliance.
Okay. Step 2 is the one I think is hardest for modern people. Quiet the soul.
Psalm 46.10. Be still and know. An occupied mind, constantly analyzing, planning, scrolling, can't hear the gentle voice of the Spirit.
But how? My phone buzzes every 4 seconds. If I sit in silence, my brain just starts making grocery lists.
It is incredibly hard. But Nee would argue that's exactly why we're spiritually shallow. We're drowning in noise. It takes discipline.
Just 5 minutes. Let the sediment settle.
That's a great image, so the water becomes clear. Okay, step 3. Continuous dependence.
The manna in the wilderness.
Right. Can't live on yesterday's revelation. You can't say, well, I had a great experience at summer camp in 1998, so I'm good. It has to be moment by moment.
Get today's bread. Okay, step 4 was a little abstract for me at first. Counting.
From Romans 6.11, count yourselves dead to sin. It's an accounting term. To reckon something as a fact.
So it's not pretending to feel something?
No. Faith is acting as if it is true because God said it is true. You bank on it, even if your feelings haven't caught up.
Okay. And finally, step 5. This one really flips the script. Obedience as the gateway.
It does. We want to understand why before we do something. Convince me, then I'll follow.
That's the human way. Knowledge, then action.
God's way is often the reverse. Action, then knowledge. Obedience to the light you already have brings more light.
So if I'm stuck spiritually, I shouldn't go buy another theology book.
No. You should ask, what is the last thing God told me to do that I haven't done yet?
Did I need to forgive someone? Apologize.
Exactly. Go back and do that thing and the lights might just come back on. Disobedience blocks the organ of revelation.
It's an apprenticeship, not a college course. You learn by doing.
And that brings us right back to the glove. It doesn't need to understand anatomy to move. It just needs to be open. It needs to yield.
It shifts religion from being a heavy duty, a backpack of rocks you have to carry, to being a life source that carries you.
And that is a shift worth making.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. Watchman Nee suggests that the problem isn't that God isn't speaking, but that we aren't listening. The problem isn't that he is hidden, but that our eyes are shut tight. So here's the challenge. If you stopped treating your spiritual life as a subject to be studied and started treating it as a hunger to be fed, What would change in your daily routine tomorrow?
That's the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.